A few words before we get into the main part of this video. This is the story behind the game King's Bounty, and it sets up the plot nicely. But there's a few things that needs to be said. First and foremost, I am not even going to attempt voice acting, so everything will be read with a rather plain, hopefully consistent voice. I'm not natively English, as I've pointed out several times, so certain words may be a touch of a struggle for me to pronounce correctly. So if there's any inconsistency in pronunciation, I do apologize. Thirdly, the story itself. It is a decent enough story, but it is written a bit clumsily, if you ask me. It feels like there was no proofreading done because there is some contradictions in the story. But it is what it is, and as I said, it sets up the background for the game nicely. So onwards to the quite long story. The crypt below the ruined keep was dank and musty. Moisture congealed on the walls and trickled slowly down to the floor, forming small puddles. A pair of grimy grave robbers braved the crypt and set about exploring the tombs. Canagor the mystic, old and bent, sifted through ancient relics buried along with an equally aged mummy. His young and somewhat frivolous companion, Hag the Rogue, sought treasure in the tomb of an ancient warrior queen. Canagor smiled as he turned the pages in the book and silently wished Hag luck. Warrior queens were not renowned for their booty. Aha! Hag, come here and take a look at this, chortled Canagor. His eyes gleamed like a librarian who found a rare and precious volume. One of the tomes floated in the air before Canagor. He was studying it intensely, leafing through the pages with a rapidity surprising for one his age. Hack strutted out wearing glimmering jewelry he had just liberated from the warrior queen. His eyes betrayed fear as he noticed the levitating book. I wish you wouldn't do that around me. I hate it. Hack paused and gave an appraisal. Book looks valuable. Gold inlay on leather. Let me see it. As Hack reached for the floating book, Canagor shouted fiercely, No! His eyes blazed with mystic power. This is for the master. The cave was unfathomably large, as was its chief occupant, Eric Dragonbreath. Eric wondered what his henchmen wanted now. Hack the rogue was almost unbearable, a petty thief who acted the part of an accomplished master criminal. Eric laughed, hot smoke streaming from his scaly nostrils as he thought of several bloody ways for Hack to die. Hack paled as he was bathed in the uncomfortably warm smoke. He backed away from the immense dragon, trying to blend in with the narrow crevices of the cavern wall. Canagor decided it was time to speak. O Eric, mightiest of dragons, most cunning of all, I bring you knowledge of unbridled power. Eric smiled, rows of dagger-sharp teeth glistening with saliva. Canagor always knew how to please him. A very useful man, even though he was unambitious. What do you bring me, Master Sage? Queried Eric. A book, my lord. A book with a prophecy, intoned Canagor. He straightened. The prophecy reveals how good King Maximus can be toppled from his throne and be supplanted. How is that, Canagor? Eric's greed for power was aroused. How can I dethrone Maximus? Steal the scepter of order, blurted the suddenly courageous Hack. Eric grumbled a low and distant thunder. He unfurled his wings, enclosing the two men under an umbrella of darkness. Eric slowly lowered his massive head, neck extending sinuously until he was face to face with the humans. Why the scepter? He breathed. Gallagher and Hag was assailed by a tepid gust of sulphurous air. As Hag trembled, Gallagher spoke firmly. For it ties him to the land, Eric. He loses the scepter, and the four continents lose order. And without order, chaos shall rule. Eric shot a burst of flame across the cavern, scorching the farthest wall. Excellent, he roared. Excellent, you both shall be rewarded. Hack's eyes lit up at the mention of the word reward. Canagal merely smiled. Eric did not even notice. He was already formulating a master plan. Baron Jono McCall stretched his considerable girth across the pillars which lay strewn across the tent floor. A slave girl murmured demurely next to him. He contemplated her sleek back as dawn slowly approached. The Baron was of a once proud lineage, whose mighty empire had shattered and collapsed upon itself until it was no more than a pitifully small island nation far removed from the days of conquest and glory. He stared in surprise as a huge cyclops burst through the tent flaps. The Baron, seemingly offended by the cyclops' lack of manners, stood up with fire in his eyes. "How dare you!" he yelled. "What do you want?" "We fight now!" bellowed the dim-witted Vargash I saw. "Eric says attack castle now." He focused on the girl with his solitary, menacing eye. "Kill!" Vargas smiled toothedly as the slave cringed with fear. The Baron smiled, pretending not to notice the exchange. How quaint! The one-eyed monster wanted to play with the soldiers. "Prepare the troops. I will lead them into battle myself. Now leave me." The Baron sat mounted upon a dazzling white charger. Vargas stood next to him, towering over the mounted man. Thousands of troops stretched behind them, a motley crew of men and monsters. Raising his gauntleted hand, the Baron signaled the trumpeters to sound the attack. Galloping, he led the charge down to the king's castle, home to King Maximus. At first, the battle went well. The Baron withdrew to a hill overlooking the field of battle, surrounded by his entourage. His troops slaughtered the surprised garrison that met them on the field. Vargas I saw was especially impressive, laying waste to all about him. He pulverized friend and foe alike with his deadly piked club. Then Maximus appeared on the castle parapet. He was adorned in mirrored armor, a beacon of blazing light reflecting the mid-morning sun. He held the scepter of order high so all could see it. Suddenly, pikemen rushed from the hastily opened castle gates, clearing a path for the charging cavalry and knights. The Baron's troops hesitated, surprised by the ferocity of the counterattack. Within minutes, it was clear that Maximus had won the day. On his hilltop, the Baron watched in sorrow as Bargath was captured. It was time to flee. A dirt-encrusted horseman knelt before King Maximus. "My liege, Baron McCall has been captured. We have thrown him into the dungeon next to his single-visioned companion." The king grinned. "Well done. The four continents are safer now that he lays in captivity." The Baron frowned as he lay staring at the stone ceiling. The cell would just not do. Vargas snored louder than an army. Still, he contemplated. Eric would be pleased that the first stage of his plan was successful. He closed his eyes and dreamed of the riches that would be his. A bearded wizard, garbed from head to toe in crimson, bent over the tome of the prophecy, muttering to himself. Magus death spell could not believe it. He, the most powerful wizard on the four continents, upstaged by nobody, an old man and his bumbling petty thief of a companion, now reduced to research with the arrogant trickster Prince Varaspine, Lord of the Elves. Magus wondered why he put up with Eric's orders. Maybe he should research a way to kill the mighty dragon. Slow poison or dry rot spell would do nicely. Magus's index finger glowed eerily with power as he anticipated the demise of his master. Prince Barrowspine strode regally into the room. The pair of guards escorting him remained just inside the entryway, waiting silently. The prince spoke. You should be studying, not daydreaming, O mighty wizard. Magus glared at the prince, daring him to continue. Eric will be displeased with you, most ingenious of wizards, if we do not finish translating the second part of the prophecy, taunted the elf. Magus's finger glowed sun-bright, and then the blinding light lanced out into two twin beams of destruction. Where the guards stood, nothing remained but wisps of smoke, and even these faded into oblivion. A grin of satisfaction crossed Magus's face. The prince burst into laughter. Really, Magus, you shouldn't go around destroying my illusions like that. I shall just have to surround myself with new ones. Prince Barrowspine then proceeded to reach into his pouch and removed his fabled enchanted coin. He held it aloft, and it flickered brightly like a lighthouse beacon. The guards reappeared, silent as ever, waiting once again. Enough games, Despel. Tell me more about the passage in the book mentioning the demons. The prince paused. Are we really going to ally ourselves with a demon? Demons unnerve me more than Eric, and Eric, dragon breath, frightens me to death. Magus glowered. I like it not also, but it states clearly in this passage here. The good king and a symbol of order will be replaced by an evil king and a symbol of chaos. Magus continued. The only kings extant now are Maximus and Earthrax Killspite, the demon king. Very well, sighed the prince. I suppose we should inform Eric of this. It was after midnight. Furtive clouds stole quickly over the face of the moon, as if afraid to remain in one place for too long. The devastated castle crested a desolate hilltop. Long moon shadows played ominously over the empty courtyards, highlighting the bleakness of the ruins. The whole countryside was dead, as were the castle's inhabitants. In the still functional north wing of the castle, three figures sat across from one another at a table in a dimly lit room. Two were undead, and the third gesticulated wildly over a map which lay across the table. It cannot be done at night. It is not proper to conduct battle after dusk. We have enough forces. Let us attack by daylight, pleaded the lone human in the room, Ulrich Whiteskin. Ulrich was a bear of a man, tall, heavily muscled, and full of life. He wore the customary white skin, sewn together flesh of baby lambs, which he believed protected him from disaster, disease, and other malign occurrences. He was worried. The undead did not understand the foibles of the living. Dressed in moldering green strips of cloth and garnished with the odor of death, Ragface, mightiest of the undead, spoke. At night we have a distinct advantage. Our troops fight better, and the humans will be scared. After all, it is the week of the demon, and we would not want to disappoint their superstitions. Rinaldus Drybone, the Lich Lord, crossed his arms. Bone, yellowed with age, peered from the folds of his robe. His head, a human skull, gazed expressionlessly outward. Burning red embers where his eyes floated in his otherwise empty eye sockets, scanning slowly from first Auric and then to Ragface. He spoke with a hollow voice. There will be more deaths during the light than in the dark. The humans will kill more of each other if they can see each other. We will fight during the daylight. Auric cursed himself softly as Ragface acquiesced to Ronaldus's order. He could not believe that he had just consigned his loyal troops to slaughter just for the added amusement of the two undead lords. Aric's mission could have been fulfilled just as easily during nightfall. Too bad honor was not an expedient to him. Leaning over the map once more, Oric outlined his battle plan to the two undead. The continent Sahara would be liberated from King Maximus' rule quickly. Afterwards, Oric, Ratface, and Ronaldus would rule jointly over what was left. King's castle was in a state of uproar. Rebels had successfully wrested control of the entire continent of Sahara from King Maximus in a matter of days. A seemingly endless stream of refugees were pouring into the castle daily, seeking safety and shelter. To make matters worse, a trio of disreputable nobles from a distant land went the castle on a matter of state. They were forever poking around, wandering into restricted areas with innocent looks on their faces and mercilessly running the royal stewards ragged. It seemed that the nobles felt that they had to take the king literally when he told them that they had the run of the castle until he would have time to give them a proper audience. At the moment, the trio of nobles appeared to be giving the royal stewards a break, allowing them to prepare for the evening's feast. The Tsar Nikolai, a strange and wild-looking man, paced around his tower suite in a frenzy. His disheveled appearance made him look more like a crazed conjurer or a possessed soul than a king from a foreign land. His eyes, which some said revealed madness, darted back and forth across the room, glancing at everything and recognizing nothing. Nikolai's fists clenched and unclenched constantly, moving in a strange cadence with the mutterings which passed under his breath. It sounded as if he was arguing with himself. If it were anything but a demon, I would have no problem. Yet they have so much power to offer. Demons bother me. Nothing else does. But don't let them bother me. Demons don't care what I let them do or don't do. They do what they want. What are you going to do? Sir Moradon the Cruel, a knight with a rather sinister background, took the Tsar's question as a cue. I think we should ally with this Eric Dragon Breath. He has impressed me more than this knave Maximus. Eric said he would liberate Sahara, and he did. Maximus was supposed to have a conference with us more than a week ago about establishing trade between our two empires. A man of inaction and indecision does not impress me as much as a man willing to take risks to ensure decisive action, even if it fails. I say Eric is right. He should rule the four continents rather than Maximus. Mordon neglected to mention that he was secretly promised significant trade monopolies for cooperating with Eric. He had hesitated when Eric mentioned that a demon would have to rule as figurehead, but his reservations were cleared when large parcels of land were dangled before his greedy eye. Princess Imola, a rather striking if overweight woman known more for her deceitfulness than her beauty, sat upon a great stuffed chair. Absent-mindedly twirling a strand of her long dark hair, she pondered what Sir Moradon the Cruel had said. She also pondered the treasure hoard that Eric had shown her. It was to be hers if she supported him with one small indiscretion. But Moradon, you forgot. A demon is going to rule the four continents. No matter how powerful this dragon Eric is, will he be able to fully control a demon as he would a puppet? I think not. Yet I cannot agree that life for us would be much easier if Eric held sway in government. I found his arguments very persuasive. Besides, I think it would be thrilling to poison our unsuspecting Maximus at a public feast. Nikolai stopped moving and silence spread over the room like a blanket. His eyes turned to fire and he said, "You will side with Auric. The Demon King will help us greatly, as will Eric. We must act swiftly." Amola and Mordon turned and stared at one another. Maybe the rumors were true. The sorcerer Lord Nikolai had cast one spell too many in his thirst for power. Nikolai made for the door and thrust it open. A kitchen boy no doubt sent to notify the trio of the exact time they were expected at the feast, pale with fear at being caught eavesdropping. The Tsar picked up the child roughly and shut the door. Grinning savagely, he drew a long, sharp dagger from a hidden sheath. The boy struggled fiercely, trying to make noise, trying to bite the hand that smothered his mouth, trying to live. It was to no avail. Nikolai arched the boy's head backward and ran his razor-sharp dagger across the exposed throat. A fountain of coruscating blood leaped from the youth's slit arteries, spraying the walls with a multitude of tiny crimson droplets. Mordon smiled a simple smile of pleasure as he watched Nikolai with utter fascination. Amola covered her face with her ever-present handkerchief as he averted her gaze. Nikolai laughed with glee as he cleaned his knife on the back of the boy's tunic. Not a drop of blood stained his clothes. Let's prepare for the feast, commanded the Tsar. Go to your rooms and meet me as soon as you can. I shall take care of my little mess. After Aimula and Mordon had left, Nikolai fell to the floor, trembling. No, no, not again. I must stay in control. It was not to be. Flames leapt out from nowhere and danced all around him. He closed his dark eyes and shuddered. A change swept over Nikolai's body. He stood up and surveyed the completely clean room with his eyes of fire. There were no traces of the blood or the body. All that remained was a slight smell of sulphur. Magus' death spell placed the finishing touches on his pentagram. The five-pointed star was drawn in dried blood, and the protective circle and runes of protection were drawn in an enchanted powder made of ground bone. He stepped backward and admired his work. Fit to enslave the Demon King, he thought. He was snapped out of his reverie abruptly. Is it done, wizard? It was Eric, impatient and imposing. Let us finish our business. It is ready, Eric. Magus glared at the dragon and took a deep breath. I should rest before I summon Earthrak Killspite. He is strong, and I am too tired now to incant the spell properly. Besides, I heard that progress was made deciphering the last part of the prophecy. I am curious. Very well, Magus. I do not like having to wait, but I dislike the thought of having an uncontrolled demon in my cavern. You have 3 hours, decreed Eric. The wizard left, and Eric flew out of the cavern entrance to do some research himself. Magus walked through the tunnel system to the library. The network interlacing all of the caverns was quite elaborate. One day he would ask Eric how this was all made and why a dragon would want such a complex. He entered the library and saw Kanagor the Mystic scribing down information that Prince Barrowspine was rattling off. What have you two found? Demanded Magus. An addition to the prophecy, said Kanagor. It seems that conditions must be met for the scepter to be stolen. Barrowspine continued. No evil may be in the castle except the evil stealing the scepter. Once the scepter has been stolen, we must wait. King Maximus will sicken and die soon after the theft. While he sickens, so will the land. Chaos will slowly replace order. When the king is finally dead, the demon will sit upon the throne. Magus concluded, and with the demon on the throne, we will have accomplished all that we have strived for. I just hope that Eric can control the demon, said Kanagor nervously. I would not relish living under the rule of a freed demon. There's no fear of that happening. My incantations will blind the demon thoroughly, assured Magus. Magus took his leave and went to his chambers to rest and prepare for the evening's exertions. Eric returned to his chambers. The news he had received was disheartening. He would have to arrange for his servitors to be rescued from the king's castle. Bran Makal and Bargash Isor were faithful servants, and Eric knew their abilities completely. But the 3 new allies were another question altogether. Tsar Nikolai, Samarodon, and Prince Aimola were held captive for attempting to murder Maximus. Overconfident, they had made mistakes. Before the feast had begun, an outcry was raised. A kitchen boy was missing. Maximus and the revelers left the table to help search for the lad. The three panicked and began preparations to leave. When the youths did not turn up after many hours, the search was called off until morning. The food for the feast had been left untouched, and Maximus had given it to his servants. The one eating Maximus's portion had died from poisoning. Conspicuous by their absence, the three were brought before the king. Poison had been found in Aemola's belongings, which were packed neatly away for a midnight journey. Furious, the king jailed the three and set their execution for the first day of the week of the peasant. Eric wondered if he could trust such a trio to serve him. However, it did not matter. They had to be removed from the castle with the rest. Eric rumbled and exhaled smoke at Dragon's laughter. He knew just the pair to free them all from Maximus. Now, onto the conjuration. The two pirate ships cruised silently over the ocean waters. They were sailing blind at night, sneaking up in the king's castle with only the light of a quarter moon to guide them. The dread pirate Rob stood alone at the prow of the flagship, inhaling deeply of the sea air. Nothing thrilled him more than the sea and sailing, and fighting. Rob was a small man, but lithe and swift. He fought with a rapier to make the most of his small advantages he possessed. It was enough to make him the scourge of the seas. It was enough to have Eric Dragonbreath pay him an exorbitant sum to rescue his 5 servants. On the second ship, a hesitant knock woke Mark Bellowsbeak from his well-deserved rest. Mark lived up to his name and bellowed, "It had better be good for you to wake me. You know that I get cranky when I don't get enough sleep." A voice quivering with fear answered, "The dread pirate Rob signaled us, sir. We have arrived." A slow smirk passed across Mark's green face. The cabin boy would live. It was time to fight. Mark dressed quickly, picking up clothes off the floor of his cabin haphazardly. With care he took his mighty two-handed sword from its protective coverings. It shined brightly in the dim lamplight. Mark left the cabin and waited. Murray, sometimes called the Miser, feigned sleep inside the castle walls. He slept next to the gate mechanisms for the king's castle. At the appointed time, he was to open the gate and allow a band of pirates to storm the castle, freeing those political prisoners. Murray got up and stretched. The time was near. His 8 bones cracked and ached when he got up. He scratched his balding head and rubbed his bearded jaw. It was getting harder and harder to wake up. He heard something. The two groups of pirates, one led by Rob and the other by Mark, waited at the castle gate. Rob gave the signal which was supposed to open the gate. He waited. The troops bristled with adrenaline, anticipating the upcoming battle. Slowly the gate raised. Before it was halfway up, both groups were in the castle. Maximus woke to the sounds of battle. He had thought he was dreaming of the old days when he, as warrior king, had united the 4 continents. Not today. He rushed to his tower window. A group of men crossed the courtyard furtively. A small, thin man seemed to be leading 5 manacled figures away from the dungeons. Maximus shouted, drawing attention to the second group of intruders. More guards rushed forward, reinforcements alerted by the alarm which was sounding. A second group fought noisily on the castle walls. His guards were holding their own, except against one brute of a fellow who turned them into mincemeat with his giant sword. Dread pirate Rob laughed gleefully. It had been horrendously easy. Walk in, free the prisoners, and walk out. Mark had done his job excellently, drawing all of the attention away from Rob, killing the guards who could cut off Rob's retreat. All that remained now was to return the 5 convicts to Eric. Rob laughed again, exulting in the sea breeze ripping across his face. They were asleep below decks, and his and Mark's ships were sailing quickly away with no pursuit in sight. Eric would reward him well. Magus stood in the center of the cavern, dressed in his finest red robes, with his arms upraised, his brow furrowed in concentration, which threatened to break as a single warm bead of sweat slowly traced a cold red path down his forearm to his biceps, and finally to his sweat-drenched chest. The incantation was even harder than he thought. He realized that summoning Ursrak's Killspite, the Demon King, was a near impossible task. But the fight the demon put up, he either really did not want to be summoned, or he was testing Magus to see if he was worthy of anything but a slow, lingering death. Minor demons fluttered distractingly around, attracted by the strong magic Magus was working, and no doubt sent by Ursrax to disturb the wizard. Magus shut them out. They could not enter his protective circle anyway. No harm could be perpetrated. A wave of joy and terror flushed violently through Magus's now trembling body. Earthrax had come. Sulphurous vapors swirled madly in the center of the pentagram. A ring of towering flames flared up inside the protective circle of the pentagram. The cavern turned utterly black. Slowly from the center of the pentagram, a fiery light shone. Earthrack Killspite had come. He was huge and terrifying. His skin was bright green and had a scaly texture. His arms were long and heavily muscled, with cruel, sharp nails extending inches beyond the ends of his powerful fingers. His massive torso was topped by a ghastly head. Thick green horns protruded from the side of his head. The features of his face were blunt and ugly. His manner reeked of death, command, and power. When Ursrak spoke, his deep voice seemed to echo from the vastness of his chest. I am here. I know of your plans. I will be your king. But conditions has to be met first. Where's your leader, the dragon? Eric stepped forward from the perimeter of the cave, forgotten in the excitement of the conjuration. I am Eric. Let us set the terms so that we may act quickly. Magus, near total exhaustion, sighed. It was going to be a long night. King Maximus rapped the table loudly with the scepter of order, silencing his many arguing counselors. He spoke. We need help. The rebels are too well organized and have put us at their mercy. Their early attack on us failed because they wanted it to. They led a successful rebellion in Sahara. They subverted foreign emissaries who sit in my dungeons now awaiting execution to their cause, convincing them that they would prevail against me. What will they do next? His advisers debated for hours, unable to come to a conclusion. The session adjourned until the morning, vainly hoping that sleep would bring a new light to the situation. Maximus kept a grim determination, though. He knew that as long as he, the king, held the scepter, chaos could not come to the four continents. Eric and Earthrax bargained well into the next day. They both made sure that there would be no problems. Each felt that they had the upper hand. Later, plans were finalized for the theft of the scepter. Earthrax would lead Eric into his domain. From his home, Earthrax would open up a dimension gate, allowing Eric to appear next to Maximus and the scepter, but only for a matter of moments. Eric would have to secure the scepter in his grasp to be sure that when he was sucked back to Earthrax's domain, the scepter would travel with him. Contrary magics often held a negative effect for one another. Eric was nervous. All of his work and that of his minions had led up to this point. It all depended upon him. There was not even a chance of treachery from Earthrax. Blood oaths were signed between them. What if he failed? Eric searched and found Earthrax, who was deep in conversation with Ronaldo's Drybone and Ragface. It is time, Earthrax. Then let us go. Maximus could not believe that his advisors were so helpless. The meeting was utter chaos, nothing productive was being accomplished. His subjects needed help, his enemies needed to be stopped. Maximus stood, scepter of order clenched firmly in his hand. The room quieted, his advisor's attention fixated upon the king. We know that the dragon Eric Dragon Breath leads our opposition, Maximus continued. We know where he is. It is time to end council. It is time for action. He raised the scepter above his head. We will lead an army now. We will crush them once and for all. Suddenly his advisors gasped collectively. Behind Maximus a large rectangular void had appeared. A scaly head protruded from the void, a dragon head. Maximus, sensing that something was wrong, began to turn. He instinctively drew the scepter to his body while he moved, but it was too late. An immense claw pried the scepter of order from his grip and withdrew into the void. Looking into the void, Maximus could see the dragon who had just stolen his precious scepter. Besides the dragon was a fierce-looking demon who guffawed wildly. Flames surrounded the pair, licking them but not burning. The void closed. Maximus was frozen in place. His advisors stared at him, hoping that what they had just witnessed had not happened. Maximus collapsed, and their fears were realized. Months had passed since the theft of the scepter. The four continents were falling to ruin. All of the many castles which crossed the lands were inhabited by one of Eric's henchmen or horde of monsters. The last remaining outpost of order was the king's castle, where some trace of the scepter's location was eagerly being sought after. Maximus was dying. All Eric wanted now was his death, and it seemed as if Maximus was going to give him that too. Eric was patiently waiting for the day Earth's Killspite would sit upon his throne and chaos would rule supreme. Maximus smiled, a last glimmer of hope. He had a surprise for Eric and Earthrax. A hero was on his side. Recently returned from the conquest of a ferocious evil dungeon, the hero had agreed to raise armies and recover the scepter from Eric. Maximus was clinging as long as he could to life. The hero was the only chance for his people and his land to remain pure, and the hero only had until the time Maximus died to recover the scepter. A seed of worry bloomed in Eric's mind. Resting comfortably within his newly acquired castle, Eric listened to Magus's report with distress. They were sending a mighty hero after him to recover the scepter. Damn heroes anyway, they always seemed able to do the impossible. But not this time, thought Eric. Not with me. I will make it truly impossible. Eric put his plan into action. He buried the scepter in a secret location and then fragmented the map into 25 pieces. He and his followers each kept a piece of the map, and he placed the remaining 8 artifacts of power which he could not use. Let them find the scepter now. I will rule. Chaos will prevail.